Hi, my name is Suzanne Moore and I'm a real estate broker here in Key West. I've also been a resident here on the island for 31 years and I'm the Realtor Political Action Committee Chair for the Key West Association of Realtors. Over the last 3 weeks, I have sat down with all 9 candidates that are running for Commissioner and Mayor. Why they should vote for Sarah for Commissioner this year. Why should they vote for Bobi Lore?
Trying to bring people together.
What I have accomplished in 23 months, my opponent hasn't done in 8 years.
That's not factual.
Okay.
It's not factual.
I asked them all property-related questions, including but not limited to housing, property rights, short-term rentals, property taxes, the workings of the building department, and all things real estate. All these interviews are available on my YouTube channel, no cuts and no edits. If you'd like to watch these, just click the link below, and I hope that these interviews will help you decide who to vote for in the upcoming elections. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Bobi Lore, who is running for commissioner here in Key West, and I'd just like to welcome him. Welcome. Very, very nice to have you here.
Hi, Suzanne. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Pleasure.
We're going to spend some time talking about questions that pertain to real estate, property rights, insurance, some things that people are interested in getting some information about. And so we're going to start off by maybe you could tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run for commissioner this year.
Sure. Well, I've decided to run for commissioner because I feel like this city that I love so much is in need of some change in how it operates. And I believe that I am such that change agent that can bring the types of policy shifts and energetic transformation for how the city operates, and that's why I'm running.
And how long have you been in Key West?
I've been in Key West now about 10 years, and I own Island House Resort on Fleming and White. We're celebrating our 50th anniversary this year.
Congratulations.
And that's a big deal. I have a lot going on there in celebration of that all year long. And I've also served on the DAC, the TDC's DAC. I did that for 3 years. And I'm also a graduate of the Key West Ambassador Program, member of the Chamber of Commerce, member of the Business Guild.
Great,
Yeah.
wonderful, good. Well, we're going to start off talking about my favorite subject, which is housing. And for all of those people who own housing here in Key West, and not just the people, the residents, but we're going to talk a little bit about something that's always brought up on every campaign, which is affordable housing, workforce housing, housing in general. So as Key West has very little land remaining, if we're going to create additional housing, where should that go? And should the city prioritize redevelopment, change the density in certain areas, use existing buildings? What is your general ideas with regards to the workforce housing and housing that's happening currently on the island?
Great question. Well, as a business owner with over 40 employees, it's very important to me that my staff feel like they can live well and thrive here in Key West. And it's very important that all of our small businesses, which are run by the working people of this town. Oh, excuse me, my phone is ringing.
That's
sorry.
Okay.
I'll just turn that off and silence it. Thank you. It's very important to me that that all of the people that work this town and help drive the economy can afford to live here and can thrive in Key West, not just get by. So housing is central to that. It's a complicated issue, honestly, and you know, being that we're on a very finite piece of land, there's a lot of there's limitations in that to what we can do. But one of the things I think we can do is incentivize, wherever possible, partnerships with other entities, be they private entities, such as take Publix, for example. We know that when Publix builds their shopping centers in other parts of the state and country, they often include housing with that. And to me, it feels like a missed opportunity that they are, as of now anyway, coming in and redoing their plazas without any affordable housing included in that. To me, that's a missed opportunity on the city's part. I believe that there are ways that the city could look into incentivizing publics to want to create affordable housing in their plazas, because again, with such limited space, that's a gold mine of space out there that's available. So
Right.
that would be one such thing.
Sure. Some of the residents have said to us that the city has spent quite a lot of money, millions of dollars in fact, in the last 10 years, on various affordable workforce housing and affordable housing projects. And some of them are maybe not maximized, not fully occupied. Are there ways, do you think, that we could try to bridge the gap between what's needed and what's available?
Yes, there has to be ways. And, you know, as somebody who would be sitting on the commission, I would want to really, this is an important issue, and I feel like it's one where we would be well served to assemble a type of committee of local people that are experts in the field, be that on the realty side of it, and also on the ownership side of it, and on the needs of the working people side of it, and really let them help us understand how we could best serve these needs and how we could come up with solutions where everybody wins.
Right, right. There certainly has always been the emphasis on more and more, but now we have a lot of projects in development. We've done a lot of projects over the last few years. Now maybe we need a little bit more of a better management of what we have. It seems, that maybe that's something that we can do.
That's fair.
Yeah. Staying on building and zoning, and one of the things that has come to our attention in recent years is the building height restrictions that we have here in Key West. Do you believe the current height restrictions strike the right balance between preserving the city's historic character and allowing redevelopment and taking into consideration climate adaptation? Because we have two things here, both residential and commercial. So what do you think about the height restrictions that we currently have?
Well, in general, I am not in favor of increasing the height with which we can build in this town. I am open-minded to hearing, again, from experts in the fields that if there is a case to be made for expanding the height restrictions, I'm certainly open to hearing them.
Right.
But initially speaking, I'm not coming in thinking that that's the way to go.
Right. So I think there's, with two separate things, like the residential specifically, the new FEMA maps, rules with regards to flood insurance, new bills have to be raised substantially compared to where they currently are. But the ceiling height restrictions have remained the same, which restricts the square footage that a building is able to, be completed at, and the second floor tends to have a lower ceiling. Hence, the question is that an easy fix to accommodate climate adaptation? And the other side is more of the commercial side, which is in the more of the new town, where Publix is, that was a one-level building. And, in developing that, should we be able to, if we're able to put housing on the top, shouldn't we be able to, raise that up?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just not efficient to have out there in Newtown, especially, to have such a large area with one-story commercial space only just seems like a waste to me of room to grow.
Right.
And there's a number of floors we can add to that, staying within the town's height restrictions.
Right.
Now, I do appreciate the notion of in the climate change that we're experiencing, and with sea level rise and with flood mitigation, and obviously wanting to keep insurance as low as possible, the need to build up so-called stilting properties, and that effectively takes away the first floor of livable space if you're having to do that. So some might say, well, then could we add another floor to the space for that? That would be a reason to potentially increase height restrictions. When it comes to climate change adaptation, that's a very serious issue, and that is the area that I would most be looking into if we were to consider raising height restrictions.
Right.
That would be related to that, related to insurance costs. Those would be reasons to seriously look into it.
Right, great. And so as we're going to talk a little bit about the incentives, should Key West try to encourage property owners to provide long-term housing for the local workforce instead of short-term monthly rentals? What would those incentives look like for you if you could do that on a local level? Or can we do anything at a local level?
I think that we can. Where there's a will, there's a way. And I think that, again, this is another area where assembling a group of representatives of property owners, of landlords, of renters, of business owners who are attempting to help house their employee staff. I think that we need to really listen to what they're saying and make decisions about what the city could do to help. I know there's ways to provide incentives. I'm not exactly sure what those incentives would be, but I'm very open to incentivizing, and I think that there's a way to do it. There are ways to do it, and we need to hear more from the people that those incentives would most impact before we go ahead with that.
Right, sure. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit about monthly rentals, vacation rentals. You know, you're in the business, and so this will be something that I'm sure you'll have some good opinions on. As more and more visitors are choosing to stay on boats, water vessels, rather than traditional accommodation like guest houses and hotels, and Airbnb and VRBO are you know, predominant with those types of short-term and nightly rentals on boats. Do you believe the city should adopt a policy governing the short-term lodging on vessels, and also located in the city marinas or on city-controlled waterfront property? And if so, what do you think those policies should be?
That's a complicated question, and I hear a few questions within that. So let me see if I can sort it out a little bit. First of all, when you say vessels, I'm curious, are you talking more about, say, boats and floating homes that are docked in the Bight, in the Key West Bight or the Garrison Bight? Or are we talking more about vessels that are out in the mooring fields?
I think both. I think what's happened is there's been an increase, not just, you know, in various places, yes, in our city marinas, and also out on the moorings, which that are doing short-term rentals. We've heard about it. We've seen a growth in it because the rules don't apply, because they're boats and they're not residential units in Key West, so that they have there's a lot of short-term rentals going on there. And some people have said, hey, you know, our TDC dollars are being spent to market the island, and a lot of people are staying on these vessels and boats, short-term rentals, maybe not paying any licensing fees, maybe not paying any taxes, And so that's where the question is coming in. How can it be regulated, or can it be regulated?
I think it can be regulated, and I think that when it comes to regulations in general, I think the city has a responsibility to create fair and consistent and clear regulations that apply across the board. It doesn't matter who you are or who you know or anything about that. And I do believe that if people are making money renting here in the city, whether it be in a building, on a boat, it shouldn't matter to me. I think that it's fair for the city to attempt to better regulate that so that it's more equitable between all of the people that have space to rent.
Right, right. We're going to stay on the short-term rental thing. So after the expiration of the trim and annex licenses, that was a lot. There's now the number of vacation rental licenses, transient, is lower than it's been for many years in Key West. In fact, now they're so limited, the market value of a transient rental is about $500,000. On the open market, they're selling for $400,000 to $500,000. Do you believe that the city should maintain its current cap on transient licenses, or could we expand the number of licenses in the correct zones in town? Tell us what you think.
It's another fair question. As you know, in Key West, there are a number of hotels and guest houses that pay a lot in taxes to exist, and I think it's fair to support those businesses in a way where an overabundance of transient rentals may undercut that. So I would be very considerate of that, and I do also think that again, with the limited amount of housing that our island has, you see so many houses that are not being lived in as houses, and when they're monthly rentals, that's one thing, because it brings in more people for longer periods of time, and it creates a little bit more stability in the neighborhoods. When you have a constant revolving door of these houses that and condos and such that have people coming in and staying for 1, 2, 3 nights at a time and coming and going, I think that Island is better off not having an overabundance of those. A proportionate. I think the city needs to find a balance, and again, these are things that a committee of experts in the field who would bear the brunt of the impact of these decisions should have an opportunity to weigh in and help the city be able to make the kinds of decisions on regulations and licensing that'll serve the overall community.
Yeah. I think a few years ago we had a housing person that the city hired that was in charge of that. It was definitely some great conversations that person was having with a lot of different entities around town, but I think that they eventually left. As you know, I think they couldn't find anywhere to live, which was sort of
how
crazy,
ironic,
right? It was so crazy. A previous city commission proposed a policy that would have prohibited any future properties from becoming eligible for monthly rentals. I don't know if you remember that. It was about 2 or 3 years ago. It was proposed that if you had a monthly vacation rental license, you could stick with it and be grandfathered in, but any future purchase, sale, if they didn't have it, they couldn't get it. Do you see anything like that in the future? Would you agree with something like that, or?
I'm not inclined to agree with that.
Okay.
But I would keep an open mind as potentially things shift economically and with other factors, I think it's important to not approach things so rigidly, because sometimes circumstances change. Rigidity doesn't always keep up, so we have to be open to that.
Sure. Okay, great. And currently, we have, I think, north of 3,000 monthly vacation rental licenses on the island, which is a lot.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. So do you think the city is doing enough to enforce the current rules that we have? Or do you think we could encourage some stronger enforcement, maybe stronger fines? What are your thoughts on how it's currently being managed?
I think there's room for greater enforcement, and I think that when it comes to regulations in general, I think it's the city's responsibility to be clear up front so everybody knows what they're getting into in advance, and fair. Sometimes sometimes the city may look away from a certain situation and then be all over another one, and that is not the type of city I want to be a part of.
Right, right, okay. So we're going to sort of go in another direction now. You've already mentioned it once with regards to property insurance, wind, flood, affordability, et cetera. So property insurance has become one of the biggest obstacles to buying and owning a home in Key West. And I'm sure as a business owner, your insurance is probably very, very expensive. And many decisions are made at a state level, we know that. But are there any specific actions you would take as commissioner to help reduce the burden of wind or flood insurance on property owners?
Well, I think that a couple of things. One thing is, I think that I think the city has a responsibility to make maintaining our infrastructure across the city, and not just maintaining it, but improving it. Whether it's roads, our stormwater drainage, various factors like that. These are the kinds of things that contribute to insurance costs going up, and I think that as well, I believe that there's room for the city to encourage and seek county, state, and federal cooperation on insurance matters. I do believe that there's more room than perhaps is being explored for that. We need to stabilize insurance. There's no question about it. It's getting away. It's getting out of hand for a lot of people, and it's in some cases the number one thing that pushes people out of town.
Yes, it is. Yes,
and
it is.
That's not good.
It has been difficult. For instance, last year citizens required people to have a flood policy, and then the rules changed after 1 year. So a lot of people went out and spent the additional $1,500, $1,800 on a flood policy, and were never really informed by anyone that the rules changed back. And I say to some of the people, how can the citizens know? Because the insurance companies are not telling us, hey, you don't have to spend that anymore.
Right.
And I'm guilty myself. I didn't even know that the rule changed back, and I'm in the business. I'm not in the insurance business, but I'm in the real estate business,
right.
And you would have thought that I would have known that. But, again, information to the citizens of Key West so that we know, and, unfortunately that information wasn't given out. So maybe at a local level, we have a do you know, to inform people. How do we improve things,
Well, I think there's room for city government to work with the local insurers. I mean, in the case of citizens, who else is there?
Right.
So it shouldn't be complicated for our city government to know what citizens is doing for the people, to and for the people of Key West.
Right.
So I think that's a role that city government can play.
Yeah, sure, certainly. And so keeping on the whole flood thing, and you've already mentioned it with our storm drains, we've experienced several intense rains past couple of years. We had one last month where the island flooded quickly.
The lake makers.
Right, and we had one my own office here had water last year. And so given the city's limited budget, is there anything that we can do, prioritize over the next 4 years, that would help the residents and businesses with regards to those kinds of things? Obviously, we can't influence, nature. So what can we do with their infrastructure and other things, do you think, to alleviate some of these?
This is a big challenge because, of course, nature is a force beyond any of us. The sea level is rising, and if we get a big rain and happens to be high tide when that happens, we all know what happens. Yeah. I believe another great example of we need experts in the field of stormwater drainage mitigation to be empowered to really give us options,
right,
that we can then choose what makes the most sense. But there's no question about it that we have to make, as a city priority, we have to make stormwater drainage mitigation one of the top priorities. Mm-hmm. No question about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. So kind of going into building permits and ROGOs and B-passes, I'm sure you're getting familiar with all of these terms, ROGOs, B-pass allocations. Do you believe our current ROGO and B-pass allocation system is being managed right, strikes the right balance between protecting the environment and supporting property rights?
I think there's room to improve the balance, for sure. Mm. The environment is Key West. Maintaining the environment of Key West is always going to be the number one factor in continuing to see our island be a destination that people want to spend their hard-earned money coming to, right, and people living here to support the businesses that make it the place where people want to come. So we just have to continue working on that balance. Balance is the name of that game right there.
Right. So when it comes to the building, we're going to talk a little bit about the experience that people have been talking about with the building department. It's something, as a realtor, I deal with a lot of times, working with builders, working with homeowners who are trying to get things done or improved in their house. Building delays and people that are currently trying to get through the building department say there's so many delays, there's so many issues, it's not user-friendly, it's complicated. Mm. What do you see, as if you were elected as commissioner, how you could influence that to be run better, that to be managed a little bit better, to be a little bit more user-friendly to the citizens of Key West?
I think it needs to be a lot more user-friendly for the citizens of Key West. I think that, as a city commissioner, I would like to be a part of a thorough review of the entirety of city government, whereby we can find areas where there's inefficiencies, redundancies, inconsistencies, and I think the building department is one of the prime areas where we're going to find that there's room to improve it tremendously. It needs to be clear, fair, consistent, predictable, and timely. It just costs so much more money to property owners, to people who are trying to do projects, trying to make repairs, anything they're trying to do that requires permitting. The longer it takes, the more expensive it's going to be for them. The more headache they have in doing it. Our citizens don't deserve that.
Right.
They deserve a city government that works for them, not at them.
How do you think we've kind of gotten to this place, where it's so complicated and bureaucratic?
That's a good question. I think it's a combination of a slippage of oversight among leadership of city government. I think it's partly a result of maybe the way the city's been managed over the years. And I think that with more attentive leadership that is more focused on the need to streamline our government, to reduce it in many ways, to cut the fat, so to speak, to make it more efficient, less redundant, and more user-friendly. I think that's what it's going to take to improve what we're talking about.
And do you think it's really realistically doable? I mean, because I know a lot of people say we need to improve things, but are you really committed? If you get elected as commissioners, that's something that you're going to be really committed to trying to do?
Absolutely. It's one of my top commitments. Now, when I say commitment, I'm not promising things because I'm not in a position to promise, but I can say that I'm committed to doing everything I can in working with everyone that is willing to work on achieving these results. I'm committed to making the government of Key West much more user-friendly, much more efficient, and help people reduce their costs of living, doing business, etc. here.
Yeah, make it easier.
Absolutely.
Simplify the
Easier,
whole process.
simpler, and less expensive.
Right, great. So we're going to talk a little bit about the taxes. I believe the city is doing the budget now.
Yeah.
And, trying to see how it's all going to work. We've had a few things that have been proposed. The governor's proposed some changes to the Florida homestead tax system that to be, applied over the coming years, which could reduce some of our local government revenue. And do you agree with what he's currently proposing?
Well, I'll say this. Nobody wants to pay more taxes.
Exactly.
So I'm not going to say that it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I do think that it will and needs to be part of what motivates a city government to find other ways to generate revenue and other ways, even more importantly, to cut spending, to be more efficient in how we use our taxpayers' money. I think people are demanding that we focus on that, and I'm committed to doing that.
Right. So yeah, it's always hard to find the right balance to cut spending without losing any of our essential services. I mean, where do you think we can cut areas in the budget? You have any ideas about that?
That's a good question. I think the first place I would look is within the city government itself. For example, I think it's ridiculous the amount of money that our current city manager is making, and I know that's just one little example, but it is an example, and if you add all the little examples up, you could end up finding a lot of areas where the city can spend less money.
Less money. What do you think about the proposed $30 million plus for the new firehouse that we're talking about that was approved in the bond? What is your vision on that?
Well, I'm very supportive of our town's overall public safety. It's crucial that we have a functional and efficient fire department, they need a new station there. There's no question about it.
Right.
Is $30 million a little high or just right? I think it might be a little high. I would like to look further into that. Does it really need to? Do we really need to allocate so much money to get them an effective station? I mean, every $1 million could go to something else. So even if it went to $29 million,
Right.
that's still $1 million that
Right.
could be going to a lot of other things.
Right.
So it's not like we need to chop it in half, but I do think it needs to be looked at in more detail.
Right, right, yeah. So there's a lot of, some people that are campaigning or saying the city has a lot of assets that could be used to raise money. We have reserves that are there. Some people have said our reserves are there for our, in case there's a storm, reserves that are needed in case we have to have that. What are your views about using the reserves? Do you think that we have enough in reserves? Do you think, it's recommended that we have 100 days of reserves, so that we have that money? What do you think about that?
It seems to me like we're one of the better off economically cities in the state. I believe that we do have healthy reserves. I'm not a fan of dipping into those reserves just to fund mundane projects.
Right.
I do think that it's incumbent upon our city to find other ways to generate more revenue,
Right.
to bring more money into the reserves and to bring more money into the budget that we can use
Right.
to fund things that enhance everybody's quality of life, from infrastructure to everything,
Right.
and not have to tap into the reserves.
Right. It's always difficult to find the exact things that we need to do to raise more money, but not cut any of our essential services, of course. And now that we've just gotten Higgs Beach added to yet another asset at Key West, were you in favor of that, or what do you think about the whole?
I was not in favor of it overall. What I was in favor, I was not exactly against it. What I was in favor of was taking more time to study the fine points of what it would mean for the city of Key West. I was a little suspicious of how ready to let it go the county was. That gave me pause. And I think that in the long term, it's going to potentially be a financial burden on the city that hasn't really been talked about much. And so I would have liked to have seen a more strategic plan for what this would be if we did it, and how it would be funded, and how it would be maintained, and what kinds of development or lack of development would be part of the vision. I haven't heard enough of that, and the lack of that gives me suspicion about what's going on. And so as a commissioner, I would be paying great attention to that.
Okay, great. So those are the questions that we have. And so why don't you take a couple of minutes now to tell the viewers and those that are listening as to, why should they vote for you? We'll take just a minute or two if you want to, tell the people, why should they vote for Bobi Lore?
Hi, people. I think you should vote for me because I'm someone that cares deeply about Key West. And I'm a person who, I love people, and I'm able to get along with all sorts of people and bring people together who may have opposing views. But in bringing people together, we can bring forth the best possible solutions to any challenge that we're facing. I come in as a relatively fresh presence to the commission, where I'm independent, and I'm ready to help change for the better how the city government works for you, all of us residents, business owners, working people. As a business owner, I'm very pro-worker, and I understand that if business owners don't treat workers with the respect that they deserve, they're not going to be able to live here. They're not going to want to live here. And that would be a shame because that would diminish what Key West is. I really believe in the cultural uniqueness of Key West, and I would work to retain what makes Key West such a desirable place for people from all over the world to want to come. It costs a lot of money to come to Key West. Most people don't drive here unless you live in, South Florida or something. It costs money to get here, to sleep here, to eat and drink here, to enjoy yourself here. And so why come here? You come here because it's a special place, it's a unique place where there's no shortage of things to do, and I want to make sure that all of these things that make Key West unique and special are retained and strengthened, can really thrive. And Key West needs to be a place where everybody feels welcome. No matter who you are, no matter where you're from, doesn't matter the color of your skin, your orientations, anything about you. Everybody comes to Key West because they feel welcome here, and we need to make sure that Key West remains that type of place. If you vote for me as your next commissioner, I promise you I will be an advocate for all of the people in Key West. I will use common sense for our common good, and I will be someone that you can trust. Honestly, I'd be honored to earn your trust.
Oh, I think that's a great answer. Thank you so much, Bobby, for
Thank
coming
you,
in
Suzanne.
and
Thank you for
talking to me.
having me.
Thank you, guys.